Okay, gentlemen. So the Jewish people are in a situation where they're running out of Egypt. We have to. We're just starting Beshalach now, and they're leaving Egypt and they're heading out. Now take a look at Perek Yud Dalid Pasuk Yud. We're heading for the Red Sea, and then on page 368, towards the bottom, it says. Perek Yud Daled, Pasuk Tes. And the Jewish people go out, and it says 1/5 of them went out because 4/5 of the people died during the plague of darkness because they didn't want to leave, and so on and so forth. And then it says like this, Pasuk Tes, towards the bottom. It says, Vayirdufu Mitzrayim achareim. The Egyptians chased after them. Vayasigu osam, 3 lines from the bottom, page 368. Vayasigu osam chonim al hayam. They catch them at the sea. Kol sus rechev paro farasha v'chelo, Paro in all of his horses and his chariots. Al pi achiros liftei baal tzafon. So the Egyptians chase after them. Paro leads the charge. And we'll see that they had a tremendous amount of booty with them. The Egyptians it says after the splitting of the sea, when the Jewish people were gathering the treasures that the Egyptians left on the shores, there was more treasure there than what they took out of Egypt itself. Because in the old days, apparently, when they went to war, hold all the questions for about 20 minutes. Let me just get started. The Egyptians, when they took all the treasure, when they went to war, so they took a lot of treasures with them. They took their gold and silver and their chariots because it gives you a little bit of a visual aid what you're fighting for. You know, it gives you a little bit more motivation. Let's fight, otherwise we're going to lose all this. And so they took it all with them. And they go off there, and they're being chased by the Egyptians. Now, how many Egyptians are chasing them? So there are different estimates according to the Midrashim. They were outnumbered 3-1. They were outnumbered 10-1. There's one estimate they were outnumbered 300-1. The Jews are outnumbered 300-1. That the Jews are outnumbered 300-1. And so if you take 300-1, if there are 2.5 million Jews, they're outnumbered 3.5 million to 1. That's about 800 million Egyptians, which is almost as much as mainland China. And they all know karate. So and they're chasing the Jewish people. The situation looks bleak. You got the sea on one side. You got 800 million people. So first of all, the number 300, by the way, in Hebrew, in the classic text, in the Gemara, when you see in the Midrash, when you see number 300, 300 is often the number used for exaggeration. 300 is the number used for exaggeration. Now, the whole topic of exaggeration, just parenthetically, there are 2 types of exaggeration, one which is permissible and one which is not. What some people call embellishment. Well, you exaggerated the story. So last night I was walking, 3 guys attacked me, and I put all 3 guys in the hospital. Okay, now, the truth is I embellished that story a little bit. It wasn't 3 guys, it was 1 guy. And it wasn't the male, it was a little old lady. And I didn't put her in the hospital. She hit me over the head with her purse, right? And I ran away, right? But I embellished the story a little. I just embellished the story. That's what we call a lie, right? That is prohibited. You can't embellish stories. He's a big guy. He was a big guy. I took, I hit him. Oh yeah, I hit about 3 home runs. Yes, they didn't hit 3 home runs. He struck out twice, and you popped up. But if I would have gotten good wood on it, would have been 3 home runs. That's embellishing. That's what's called a lie. There's another type of exaggeration, which is what we call figure of speech exaggeration. The old saying, I told you 1,000,000 times, don't exaggerate. Right? So that, we all know, it wasn't 1,000,000 times, and that is permissible. So sometimes the Gemara will use the number 300 as the figure of exaggeration. So for example, it says it took 300 Kohanim to, the parochas, the curtain in the Holy of Holies, it took 300 Kohanim to immerse it when they had to, when they had to tovel it. Now, he couldn't even get 300 Kohanim around it. Right? Or Korach had 300 donkeys loaded with treasures. So the number 300 is often a number of exaggeration, and it's likely to be a number of exaggeration. 800 million Egyptians, I don't know if there were even 800 million Egyptians, but it could be the Medrash is telling you they're so badly outnumbered, that's what it felt like. And you've got an army here. Paro and his soldiers are coming at you with the most modern chariots and the most modern equipment. You got a bunch of women and children with you, and the Egyptians are on one side, and you got the sea on the other side. So things are looking bad, okay? And then it says like this, top of page 370. Uparo hikriv, Paro got closer. Vayisu b'nei Yisrael eseneim v'nei Mitzrayim nosei achareim. The Jewish people see Egypt is coming after them. Vayiru me'od, They were very afraid. Vayitzaku v'nei Yisrael Hashem. They cry out to Hashem. So I think the Kutzker, one of the classic Hasidic commentaries says, they were very afraid, and that's why they called out. Because they felt that their faith isn't strong enough. For feeling fear, that's why they cried out to Hashem. Vayiru me'od, the plain meaning is they were afraid and therefore cried out. The other meaning here is they were afraid, and that's why they cried out, because they realized that they're not on a high enough level, because they shouldn't even feel fear. They shouldn't be feeling any fear. Okay, that's just a message. But the plain meaning is obviously they're in a horrific situation. So Moshe Rabbeinu says to them, "Don't worry, Hashem will take care of you." And then look at Pasuk 15. This is what we want to get to today. This is what we want to start with. Pasuk 15. Hashem says to them, "Vayomer Hashem el Moshe." 5 lines from the bottom. Ma titzak alei, what are you yelling to me for? Daber el bnei Yisrael, tell the Jewish people, v'yiso, they should go. Now, this is very puzzling because, Jews daven a lot. We're always davening. There's always there's always a prayer to say. Before you eat, after you come out of the bathroom, Shachris, Mincha, Marah, we never say, hey, quit davening already, let's get going. The Jews are always davening. There's always time to daven. There's always some tefillah lurking somewhere. And if you're Sephardi, so then you got 40 days of slichos, starting from Chodesh Elul. So for all those of you who are Sephardi, so if you're 40, and there's always another tefillah. There's another tefillah lurking. What all of a sudden Hashem says, "Oh, what are you calling out to me? You finally got the Jewish people davening. You don't want that? Tell them to start moving." Okay, so the commentaries say like this. You see, the Jewish people here need a miracle, and they need a miracle that's going to transcend nature. In order to get a miracle that's going to transcend nature, you yourself have to transcend nature. The least natural thing under the circumstances is to walk into the sea. That's not natural. In other words, there's faith, but there's faith in speech and there's faith in action. And there's a saying in English: put your money where your mouth is. I got a prediction. I think the Patriots are going to take it by about 28. Oh yeah? Yeah. Put some money down on the table, right? Put some money down on the table. Then we'll see what you really think. Right? If you really think it, then you put the money down. And if you're not putting the money down, I don't want to hear what you think, right? Because your thoughts are your money. And therefore, put your money where your mouth is. I think I see that stock looks to me like it's going up. Yeah, invest. If you don't invest, then what you think is useless. It could be you really think so, but you're not 100 genuinely convinced until you put the money on the table. I think I'm going to marry her. I think I may very well marry her. Oh yeah, let's see you marry her. First marry her, then we'll talk. Right? I think she's good. This, that, and the other. Oh yeah, I'll see you at the chuppah. That's when I'll believe it. Yeah, when you're at the chuppah, that's when I'll believe it. Now, there's a halacha, pay attention carefully, a very interesting halacha. You know that there are 3 cardinal sins you have to give your life up for. Jew has to give up his life for idol worship, immorality, and murder. You have to die. A Jew if somebody says, kill him or I'll kill you, you have to allow yourself to die. If he says, worship idols or I'll kill you, you have to allow yourself to die. And if he says, commit an act of immorality or I'll kill you, you have to allow yourself to die. That's a halacha. All other halachas, all other areas, we stay alive. If an anti-Semite pulls out a gun and says, Jew, eat the treif hamburger or I'm going to kill you, you ask for some ketchup, side order of fries, and go. Right? That's it. That's the halacha. You don't have to die. An anti-Semite pulls out, hold all questions for a little while. The anti-Semite pulls out a gun and he says, Jew, what do you call it, break Shabbos or I'm going to kill you. You're allowed to break Shabbos. There are extenuating circumstances where you're not, if it's in public and so on. But the guy, you're walking back from shul on Shabbos and some guy's sitting on his front porch drinking a beer with his shotgun and he says, hey Jew, mow the lawn over here. And he's holding a shotgun, you're allowed to, because he doesn't, you're allowed to desecrate Shabbos. He says, Jew, bow down to idols or I'm going to kill you, then you have to die. That's the halacha. Now, when a person is about to die, let's say a person is going to be burnt at the stake. Many Jews through history were burnt at the stake. Will God perform a miracle for you or not and save your life? The answer to that is, if you're hoping for the miracle, that means you're a very high-level Jew who is willing to die. There were plenty of Jews who didn't. There were plenty of Jews who weren't willing to die. They rationalized. Nobody's judging them because nobody wants to go through that test. Somebody once said to me, Rabbi, would you give up your life? My answer is, would I or should I? If I was in that situation, should I? Yes, I know the halacha. Would I? I have no idea, and I hope to never be tested. But would I? I don't know a lot of things. I don't know what I would do, right? But should I? I know what the shoulds are. That much I can say. So a Jew should give up his life. There are Jews who did not give up their life because it's an intense test, okay? But there are plenty of Jews who did. Plenty of Jews are willing to be burnt at the stake. Now, will God do a miracle for you? The answer to that is, in the Gemara it says, it depends. If you're hoping for the miracle, no. And if you're not hoping for the miracle, then it could happen. Doesn't mean it will happen, but it could happen. Now, what does that mean? It means like this. The most basic human instinct is to be alive. From the moment you're born, you are alive and you want to be alive. When a baby's born, that's the only thing he's aware of is that he's alive. And he makes his parents very well aware of it, especially at 2 a.m. Right? He is very much alive and he has very little consideration for anybody else around him. Now, the most natural instinct is to stay alive. A person who's about to die, they're going to burn him at the stake. And he's thinking to himself, boy, I'd really like to get out of this. That means he's doing a mitzvah, but he's not getting beyond natural law. If you don't get beyond natural law, you don't activate a reaction of transcending natural law, which is a miracle. If a person gets to a point where he is completely beyond natural law, he's willing to die 100%, and he's not even thinking about staying alive, not thinking about a miracle, that means you've gone beyond nature. If you've gone beyond nature, then you could elicit a response which also transcends nature, which is the miracle. Then you can't use a psych job over here. It's not like he's going, I'm not thinking about staying alive, Hashem. I'm not thinking about staying alive. Do me a miracle. No, that means you're thinking about staying alive. It means you genuinely have put that away. Then you're able to get the response, which is the like response that goes away. It doesn't mean it's guaranteed, but that's the what do you call it? That's how it works. Because in order to get the response from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we get the response that we earn. If you're a generous person, you get generosity from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If you're a good person, HaKadosh Baruch Hu treats you well. If you're a nasty person, it's going to catch up to you. At one point or other, it's going to catch up to you. We get what that's how it works. Now, we don't always see it. Can't always define it each time. Generally, in the course of a life, you see that people get what they deserve. Nice people get nice things, and nasty people eventually get their fingers caught in the door. You see that in the course of a lifetime. You could have a nice person who got his fingers caught in the door, but then he got off the hook easy. So we can't define it. We only know that's how it works. Now, the Jewish people are in a situation over here where they need a miracle. They need a miracle that's what we call the classic miracle, is the splitting of the sea. That's the classic miracle in history, is the splitting of the sea. By the way, it says in the Gemara that to match people up, to match spouses together is as difficult as the splitting of the sea. Right? So if you're talking about what level is matchmaking, it's at the level of Kriyas Yamsuf. Right? So if you think about the miracles. And it says Parnasa, earning your livelihood is as difficult as the splitting of the sea. So people think, yeah, but I got my degree. Still requires a splitting of the sea. That a guy like you made it through school is also a miracle. So that anybody was deceived enough to hire you is also a miracle. That a guy, because you put on a tie, shaved off your ponytail, and finally went in and you spoke politely, and the guy actually thinks to hire you, and the only reason he's hiring you is because he knows what he was like when he came out of college. So he realized maybe the kid's got potential. That's also a miracle. So all this is miraculous. So the Jewish people now, God says, listen. You need too big a miracle over here. This is not the time for talk and davening. Now I need to see action. Daber el b'nei Yisrael v'yiso. Now you got to start moving forward, because now I have to see an action beyond nature, which is now going to elicit the response, which is beyond nature. It's going to be the splitting of the sea. That's the idea. Okay. Now, there's another. There are a few points over here that are. By the way, I'll tell you a credible story. This is documented. There's a story, a 3-volume, the authoritative, what's considered the authoritative biography of the Vilna Gaon. There's a 3-volume set. In the 3rd volume, they brings down a story, which even the author says that this is an unconfirmed legend, but there is certainly grounds for it. Do you remember there was a famous convert called the famous Ger Tzedek, Avram ben Avram? Avram ben Avram was came from a high-ranking family in the Catholic Church. And this Avram ben Avram at a certain point decided to convert to Judaism. Along the way, he met the Vilna Gaon, and that moved the process along. Now, conversion in the Catholic Church in the 18th century to Judaism was not popular, especially by members of the high-ranking members of the Catholic Church. I think the family's name was Patatsky, if I'm not mistaken. And this Avram ben Avram, who had the career ahead of him in the church, decided to convert. So first the church tried to bribe him back. They said, we'll give you honor and position and promotion and everything else. And eventually he turned them down, and eventually they made him a fugitive. They were chasing him to kill him. And eventually they caught him. I'll tell you how they caught him in a little while, but eventually they caught him, and he was sentenced to death, to be burnt at the stake. So the Jews in Vilna, where they were going to burn him at the stake, whenever there was a stake burning of a Jew, it boded ill for other Jews as well. So the Jews bolted themselves in the house because they could have a pogrom as well. The Jews bolted themselves up in the house. And apparently, according to the legend, which is documented, he was on his way. They were leading him out to burn to death, and he passed by the window of the Vilna Gaon. And he stopped and he said to the Vilna Gaon, there is a halacha. The Gemara says a person should run to do a mitzvah. A person should always run to do a mitzvah. If you have a mitzvah, do it quickly. It doesn't mean run and trample people. It means run, get the mitzvah done. Otherwise, mitzvah is a way of escaping you. Right? If you have a chance to daven mincha now, because if you don't, then somehow you're going to wake up tomorrow morning and say, ooh, I forgot mincha yesterday. Right? One way or another, mitzvahs have ways of getting away from us. Okay? So he passed by the Vilna Gaon's window. He said, look, on the one hand, there's a mitzvah. The Gemara says you should run to do a mitzvah. On the other hand, the Gemara says you have to try to prolong your life as long as possible. Should I walk quickly to the pyre to be burnt at the stake, or should I walk as slow as possible to prolong my life for the extra few moments? That was the question that he asked them on the way to the pyre. Right? So according to the legend, the Vilna Gaon said to him, he should go quickly because this is a one-time opportunity, mitzvah of sanctifying God's name and so on and so forth. So that was the what do you call it? This idea of giving up your life, and he was willingly giving up his life. It was incredible. He and the Vilna Gaon, as a matter of fact, they took his ashes and they buried them in the cemetery, and then eventually the Russians wanted to build a highway through the cemetery or something, so the Jewish community was able to exhume the remains of the Vilna Gaon and this Avram ben Avram, and they put them together in a, what do you call it, and the Russians then built over the cemetery. So his remains and the Vilna Gaon's body and his remains are in some sort of vault, in some sort of same burial place where they moved it. In any event, by the way, there's another legend that what happened. The way they caught him, the way he was incognito and he was hiding, and he was in a base medrash somewhere. And, he had fully converted to Judaism by this point. And there were some kids who used to come into the base medrash and torment him. And they call him a wannabe, and you're not really Jewish. And they give him a hard time. And one day he lashed out at the kids. He'd had about enough, so he lashed out at them. So they went and told their father. So he came in and he said, well, I'm going to show you're a wannabe, and I'm going to teach you a lesson you never forget. And the father informed on him to the church authority that he turned them in. This Jewish guy turned him in. So apparently, when he was at the pyre and he was ready to be burnt, the monks were laughing at him. They said, "Well, we're going to get even. We'll kill you in this world, but you'll get even with us in the world to come." So he said to them, and the pyre, he said to them, imagine a kid who's playing on the beach and he builds a castle, builds a sand castle, and his friend comes over and he ruins the castle, and he swears he's going to get revenge. Then 25 years later, when they're both grown men, he runs into his friend. Do you think he's thinking about revenge for that sandcastle at this point? That's long forgotten. He's on to much bigger and more important things. He said, you could burn my body in this world, but in the world of truth, the last thing I'm going to think about is getting revenge from you for burning my physical body, because I'm going to be on to much bigger and better things in the world of truth. And then he said, I will not rest. My soul will not rest in the world of truth until I get God to that Jew who ratted on me, until I'm able to get his soul out of Gehenna. I won't rest. I will plead with God until he gets his soul out of Gehenna. You talk about a very special person. Somebody who's willing to die to be burnt to the stake. There's even one Jew, as a matter of fact, named Rav Alexander, what's his name, Ziskind, who wrote a classic Musar Sefer called Yesod V'Shorosh HaAvoda. Apparently, he was the only Jew who was at the burning, because he put himself incognito and he went to the burning for one reason, because he knew that when this Avram ben Avram dies, he's going to make a bracha. There's a bracha you make before you give up your life. When you die, when you die al Kiddush Hashem, there's a bracha you make. It's like anything else. You make a bracha that you're dying al Kiddush Hashem. And Rabbi Alexander Ziskind, who wrote the Sefer, wanted that there should be at least one Jew there to answer Amen to the bracha. So he put himself incognito because he knew a bracha would be made, so he could be there to answer Amen. So that's what it comes to when it comes to dying al Kiddush Hashem. So here God says to the Jewish people, come on, get moving, because there's no time. Now we have to see the true demonstration of faith. Okay, now go on, because there are a few more points that I want to get to. The Jewish people then take a look, because this is an insight, a very interesting insight into human nature, and I find this to be true for everybody under all circumstances. They go and they split the sea, and then they sing Az Yashir Moshe, which we say every day. I'm skipping on ahead. Now, take a look at page 380. Yes? There are different opinions what the bracha is, whether it's Lekadesh Shmo Barabim, Al Kiddush Hashem. There are different opinions exactly what the nusach of the bracha is, but there's a bracha that you make. The famous story they tell about a Jew, the anti-Semite stops a Jew. He says, hey Jew, I'm going to kill you. Anything you like to say before you die? So he goes, yes, I want to make a bracha. The guy looks at him and goes, you're nuts. I'm not going to waste a bullet on you. So, that religious we don't want to be. So then on page 380 it says like this. It says, Vayasa Moshe es Yisrael miyam suf. By the way, just so you should know that Shabbos, Friday night, often somebody washes, and then you get this new thing, right? I want to you're better off just saying, somebody please bring the salt, or somebody, or whatever the problem is, instead of new-ing for what do you call for a couple of minutes over. They say that's a Jewish cow. The Jewish cow goes new, right, instead of moo. The Jewish cow goes new. The only ones who understand that language are husbands and wives. Husbands can have a new conversation, know exactly what they're talking about. New. And as you see her walk into the kitchen, come out with the pink towel. You know exactly what he was talking about. It's remarkable. But sometimes you get these new. You're just better off just say what you need instead of making the hefsek. You're trying to, okay. So on page 380, pasuk 22, it says like this: Vayasa Moshe es Yisrael miyam suf. Moshe Rabbeinu, literally, how does he translate it? Moshe caused Yisrael to journey from the Yam Suf. The word Vayasa is the verb form. If it would have said the Jewish people travel, it says Vayisu, they traveled. Vayasa means Moshe travelized them. We don't have one word for it in English. That's why the article takes 4 words to translate it. He caused them to travel from the Yam Suf. He moved them from the Yam Suf. Okay? Now, why does it take Moshe Rabbeinu to move them from the Yam Suf? What's going on at the Yam Suf after the Egyptians are drowned?
They were celebrating.
Oh, they were doing more than celebrating.
The treasures.
The Jewish people are collecting free gold and silver. Then you got Jews who are collecting and gathering free gold and silver. And Moshe Rabbeinu say, okay, fellas, it's time to go. We got to go get the Torah at Har Sinai. It's like somebody, you're in the lunchroom eating steak, and somebody says, okay, it's time for a shear now. Yeah, I know all about it. Put one steak in one ear, one steak in the other ear, and keep on going. I don't hear nothing. Come on, fellas, we have to leave the Yam Suf. Can you imagine, you've been in shuls where there's a kiddush? And then there's always the Gabe that says, okay, everybody, they from the tables have to clean up now. Get the Jews away from the free food in the table. Oh, sure, right? There's free money over here. You got Jews at Yam Suf, they're collecting treasure. Vayasa Moshe es Yisrael. Take a look at Rashi. Pasuk 22. It's the second left column, 3 lines from the top. Left column, 3 lines. Vayasa Moshe, first word on the line. Hision bal korchon. He moved them, left column of Rashi, third word line from the top. Left column of Rashi, third line from the top. Vayasa Moshe, Hision bal korchon. He moved them against their will. She'itru Mitzrayim esuseim b'tachshitei zov v'kezer, because the Egyptians had adorned their horses with ornaments of gold and silver. Va'avonim tovos, and precious gems and margolios and rubies. V'hayu Yisrael motziin osan bayam. The Jewish people were finding them over there. Ugedola haisa bizas hayam. The booty at the sea was greater mi bizas Mitzrayim than the booty they took out of Egypt. So, you got Jews who are gathering free money. Let's go, fellas. Nobody's like, hey, Moshe, can we stay here a little longer? Come on, let's go already. We got to go get the Torah. Oh, isn't that, how quaint, So the Jewish people are being moved away from the Yam Suf. Now, right? Now, look what happens. Vayetzu el midbar Shur. They go out to the desert of Shur, which is certainly not as much fun as gathering money at the seashore, right? Vayelchu shloshes yamim bamidbar. They went 3 days in the desert, v'lo matzu mayim. They didn't find water. Now pay attention very carefully. Vayavo marasa. They came to a place called marasa, which is bitterness. Literally means bitterness. V'lo yachlu lishtos mayim Marah. They couldn't drink water from Marah kibarim because they were bitter. Alkein karash Marah. Therefore he named it Marah. So the Torah says they couldn't drink water from Marah because they were bitter. What was bitter? The water. The water was bitter. I could drink bitter water. And we'll see Moshe Rabbeinu throw something into the water to sweeten it up. But exactly what El Yasef is whispering. Sorry. The next meeting, no, very good, very good. The Kutzker Rebbe says one of the most poignant statements that I've seen in Chumash. So they couldn't drink water from Marah because they were bitter. Plain meaning is the waters, they were the bitter waters. But the Kutzker says, of course they couldn't drink water. They were bitter, the people were bitter. Why were they bitter? Because he just moved us away from Yam Suf, and we didn't find water for 3 days in there. The people are in a bad mood. So nothing tastes good. Nothing tastes good. And that's a rule in life. When somebody's complaining about something, and they're almost with righteous indignation, that's generally not what's bothering them. If somebody in the house is upset because they can't find their slippers, people aren't fuming. If you're really upset because you can't find your slippers, there's something else that my wife has always said whenever I've been bothered by something in all the last year, if I'm really bothered by something trivial, my wife says, what's really bothering you? And I've learned to do that to other people. If one sister is upset because the other sister took her skirt and wore her skirt, what's really bothering you? Because that can't be what's bothering you. People aren't that bothered by a skirt. Obviously, the two of you had a fight about something else. She used your brush yesterday, right? Even though she cleaned off the toothpaste afterwards, she used your brush yesterday. And the day before, where she said something. There's always something really bothering you. They always talk about couples are fighting because somebody didn't squeeze the toothpaste on well. And somebody didn't the husband flies off at his wife because she squeezed it or didn't cap it or something like that. That means something else is bothering him. That means yesterday she spent too much on the credit card, right? All of a sudden he's bothered by toothpaste. That's what really bothering you. And I found that is true in life in general, especially in yeshivas. When a guy's in a yeshiva and he's upset about this, he doesn't like the food, he doesn't like his roommates, that means he's not into the learning. He's bitter because he's not getting into what the yeshiva is really about. This is in the classic yeshivas. Or Samech is a little different. But in the classic yeshivas where guys are there learning all day long in a base medrash, and a guy, he's not happy with this, that means he's not into the learning. He did not get into what he's supposed to be doing. He's bitter. He's sore inside. People who are constantly fighting with you, they're constantly saying in families that happens. Somebody, no matter what you say, is always the opposite. That means he's upset about something else. Something's bothering him, which is true. That's a rule in life. The Jewish people are bitter. That's what the Kutzker is teaching. Now, how do you cure the bitterness? Says the Torah, "Vayilonu ha'am al Moshe le'mar manishta." So the people come with what would seem to be a legitimate gripe. What are we going to drink? We're wandering over 3 days without anything to drink. That seems legitimate. I mean, going 3 days without water, that's fairly legitimate. Vayitzak el Hashem. So Moshe cries out to Hashem. Vayareu Hashem eitz. Hashem shows him a wood, a tree. Vayashlech el hamayim. He throws it into the water. Vayim tuku hamayim. The water becomes sweeter. Sham sam l'choko bishba v'sham nisau. What's really going on here? Okay, he showed him some wood. He threw it into the water. The water sweet. That's certainly the plain meaning. At a deeper level, it means like this. What does the eitz represent? What do we say about Torah? Eitz chayim hi lamachazikah. Torah is a tree of life for those who take hold of it. Then your rabbi in your shul, when they put away the Sefer Torah, they always make that tree. It is the tree of life for those who take hold of it. Whenever they put away the Sefer Torah, all the people in the shul who haven't got any connection to Torah, but they all say it is the tree of life for those who take hold of it. And may you bless us, Hashem. Amen. They always have the what do you call the dramatic reading in shul. Okay, and it is a tree of life. Eitz chayim hi lamachazikah. Anytime you have the travails in life is bitter, throw a little bit of Torah into it. Put the tree into it. Put some Torah into it. And you'll see things aren't so bad. And that has a double meaning. Meaning number one is most things in life that bother us is because we've lost total perspective on it. Yeah, it's exaggerated, it's out of proportion, as you lost total perspective. Learn a little Torah, get a little Torah in your head, start looking at life from a Torah perspective. You'll see things aren't as bad as they look. If you learn a little bit of Torah, and you'll see that things in life look a little different because we've got a Torah head that's viewing it. Number one. Number two, Torah makes you feel good. When you learn Torah, you feel good. And all of a sudden, everything else does not matter. There are a lot more kids in the world. Let's do a statistical study of spankings of children. Okay? So you have a son, he's goofing around at the table, and he spills milk on his sister. Intentionally. She probably deserved it. Okay? Now, will he be spanked by his father or not? So there are two fathers. One of them was just informed that he's getting a 20% pay raise and a promotion. And he's sitting at the supper table. You have another father who just found out that he's getting a 20% pay cut and that his arch nemesis in the office is getting the promotion. Now, which one of them is likely to spank the child? Right? A or B. I would say B. Child B is much closer to a spanking than child A. Child B will get spanked, whereas child B, the father's likely to look at him after he spilled it and say, that's my boy, right? And the same father who could just easily be a spanker. Why? Because that's not what's bothering him. That's not what's bothering him. What's bothering him is something else that is then manifest in little things where he reacts. That is a rule in life. I've been there. I know. I know when I'm in a bad mood and my slipper is missing, and it's always the missing slipper that starts things off. Then your daughter opens her mouth, and the next thing you know, we're off to the races, right? And I know that it depends what kind of day I had. I know what kind of day I had because depending if you're in a great mood, the Bulls won again, yet again they won, and you're in a good mood. And it's what do you call it? There's nothing more important in life. Okay, so there's a missing slipper. But if Cutler is playing again, right, and they reset and they renew his contract, you're in a lousy mood. There was a football coach who once said, they asked him, what's the difference between winning and losing? He says the difference between winning and losing is you come home, your wife looks good, your kids are cute, and you pet the dog. Losing, you come home, your life looks horrible, your kids are getting on your nerves, and you kick the dog. He said that's the difference between winning and losing. Because it has to do with the objective realities often don't change. It's you, it's not them. And therefore, put a little Torah in it. Put a little eights in it, that changes everything. And I'll tell you a beautiful story. Let's go back now to Az Yashir for a second. Go back to Az Yashir. Beautiful, beautiful story. On page 374. So the Gemara says, we believe in the afterlife, we believe in the resurrection of the dead. One day the dead are going to come to life. Actually, I had a kid here once who was convinced. He told me, kid was Reform. I think he was studying to be a Reform rabbi. He said that there's not going to be an afterlife. That there's no such thing as an afterlife. I said, it all ends when you die? It all ends when you die. I said, nothing afterwards, nothing afterwards. Okay. Do you mind if when you die, we turn your body into dog food? You don't mind, do you? Because after all, it's insignificant. So he looks at me, he goes, no. I said, why not? He says, there's some organs I might want to donate my organs to science. I said, okay, listen, we need kidneys, livers, eyes, So they got a lot of good rump meat that science doesn't need. Do you mind if we use your rump meat? We'll grind it up, salt, make it for dog food. He says, no. Why not? He goes, my family won't be happy. I'll tell you what, I'll pay your family. I'll pay off your family. They'll be fine. Do you mind? We all know he minds because everybody knows that there's something afterwards. Everybody knows there's something afterwards. Had another Reform kid who told me that I said to him, halacha is not binding, right? Reform contends halacha is not binding. So he said, yeah, right. I said, okay, do you mind if your son one day says to you, Dad, the halacha that says I'm Jewish is no longer binding, I'm not Jewish? What would you say? Well, I guess he's right. I guess he's not Jewish. I said, okay, the next day he comes to you and says the halacha that you have to have a conversion to make you Jewish is not binding, therefore today I'm Jewish. What would you say? Well, I convinced him, he's Jewish or he's not Jewish? Yeah, I guess he's Jewish. Okay, the next day he comes to you and says, Dad, I'm not Jewish anymore because the halacha that says I'm Jewish is not binding. He says, no, he can't do that. I said, why not? He said, he can't. I said, but you're being inconsistent. He says, Well, I'm inconsistent. He was so flustered by the concept of halacha not being God. He's like, okay. So the Gemara says, where do we have evidence in the written Torah for an afterlife? Where's there evidence in the? So the Gemara brings a bunch of verses that are evidence. One of the verses it brings is this pasuk right here. Uz Yashir Moshe. The word uz means literally then, our scroll translated, then will sing Moshe. Uz is a future tense. It doesn't say uz shar. It doesn't say he then sang. It says uz Yashir, he will sing. What do you mean he will sing? He sang. The Gemara says, you see there's going to be a resurrection of the dead, and there's going to be the Jewish people singing. And the Gemara uses this as one of the sources. Obviously, we have an oral tradition. The Gemara is just showing you where is there evidence. This isn't the main source. Just showing you evidence in the written Torah that there's going to be some sort of future where Moshe will be there. Okay? Now, when after the Holocaust, the Jewish people came to Israel, the Belzer community, Jews were decimated. So there's a famous Rabbi from Belz, Rav Aaron of Belz. And Rav Aaron of Belz rebuilt his community with the remnants of the Holocaust survivors. They went to Tel Aviv. They had their shtibel there, and they had the whole community there. So it was shortly after the Holocaust. So he was sitting there at the Tish, and these were all broken people, shattered, broken people. And they said to him, Rebbe, how can we go on? How can we possibly go on with our lives? After what we went through, families were wiped out. Those of us that survived, one here, two there. How can we possibly go on? So the Belzer Rebbe said to them, look, the Jewish people, in the plague of darkness, so how many Jews died? 4/5 of the Jewish people died. That means 1/5 went out. That means everybody who went out of Egypt probably had relatives who were died, decimated. 4/5 of the people, 2 million people died. I mean, everybody who went out of Egypt, and how long ago was the plague of darkness before this? It was within the last month. Within the last month, everybody lost 4/5 of their family members. Yet they got to the Red Sea, and they sang Shira. These are people a month ago, they got out of the Holocaust a month earlier, and they sang Az Yashir. The Jewish people sang the entire Shira at the Yam Suf. How are people capable of doing that? The answer is, what does Az Yashir say? Resurrection of the dead. There's going to be a resurrection. We believe in that. And if there's going to be a resurrection of the dead, that gives us the faith to go on. A soul lives forever. We have faith to go on. So Rav Aaron of Bel said, everybody lost. Everybody went through the plague of darkness just now. But the same way that the Jewish people went through the plague of darkness, and then they were able to say Az Yashir, which is one of the signs of the resurrection of the dead, there's going to be a resurrection. Jews go on. It's not over. It's painful, but it's not over because there's going to be a future. People said, then Rabbi, you gave us the energy to go on. You've given us the strength to go on. And they rebuilt Belz, and that's how you have the whole Belz community, and so on and so forth. So Az Yashir is one of the sources cited in the Gemara as evidence for a future resurrection. All right, gentlemen, we'll see you on Sunday, Mr. John.
Thank you.